All right, so we are back now for part 4. I actually recorded this last night, but by the time you're hearing this, it is good morning from me from the UK. So I recorded this and scheduled it. My little girl's got surgery on the 13th of January, so I'm taking her for her pre-op assessment. So I have filmed this last night and I have scheduled it for now. I'm hoping to get another 3 or 4 episodes done of this throughout the day today. We are 77 pages into a 259-page document. We are learning a lot and having a bit of fun. I have been asked, does Banzan get brought up in this? Yes, it does. I will get there. We will get there. But yes, a lot of things that everyone wants to know. Yes, it does come up. Amongst many other entertaining and fascinating parts of this. So we left off. We were talking about the contract rider. So we are now going to continue on that. Point 195. Obviously, as always, it starts with what Wayfarer's point, their statement from their original 56.1 statement. And then that is quoted, and then underneath is what's called plaintiff's response. A plaintiff is obviously Lively, so she leaves a response to it. It's either disputed or undisputed, or she'll put it's undisputed because she can't dispute it, but then might say, she uses like what I call a but statement, which is where she says to the judge, undisputed, however, go and look at the full document for context, etc., basically. So I tend not to read them out in full because it's repetitive. So I just say undisputed, but, and unless there's something different, I won't read any more of that statement. But so it's either disputed or undisputed, and that's just the end of that, or it's undisputed but or disputed, and then we get context, which is usually quite interesting. Normally gets me annoyed, and I have to go on I have little tangents I do, because because I know this case so deeply and so well that I can call out her crap in real time and say, hold on a minute, that's not what you said. I have an absolutely amazing memory for what she's said in what docket, what claims that she has made previously, what has she changed, and I can pick that apart in real time. And yesterday I got annoyed, so I even shared screen and showed something else to to back up what I was saying. I think it was about Deadpool restarting filming and how that was announced on the same day as her demand for protections letter. So we're going to start going forward now. Point 194, starting with Wayfarer's statement being quoted. On December 15th, 2023, Lively's counsel sent Meziane a draft side letter, i.e. a draft of what Lively's first amended complaint refers to as the contract rider. Lively's response, undisputed. Okay. Next point, in an accompanying and email, Lively's counsel stated that the draft side letter redacted. Lively, undisputed that Lively's counsel stated that the draft side letter redacted. It's quite a bit redacted. I will be doing solely the where the stuff that's redacted today. When it becomes unredacted, I will be doing videos on just those newly unredacted parts. Okay. And I will do that for all kind of evidence exhibits, filings that have redactions. As they become unredacted or unsealed, I will do just them. So I'm not going to hold off from doing these and wait until it all comes out unredacted. I'm there's a lot to go through, so I'd rather get through it now and then have less to deal with when the unsealed versions or unredacted versions come forward. Okay, next point. Following further negotiations, redacted. On or about January 19th, 2024, Heath, acting on behalf of It Ends With Us Movie, signed the CRA as a rider to the long-form agreement that was contemplated in the offer letter. A true and correct copy of the executed CRA is at Exhibit 117. Lively. Disputed. The CRA detailing Lively's 17 protections, the side letter, is a side letter and not a rider. It makes reference to the agreement, including that in the agreement, Blakell Inc. has agreed to cause Miss Lively to render acting services. Defendants cite no evidence to support their assertion that the CRA was signed, redacted, as stated supra. Undisputed that Heath signed the CRA on behalf of It Ends With Us Movies on January 19th, 2024. Next point. The parties to the draft CRA were It Ends With Us Movie and Blakell Inc. Lively. Undisputed that the parties to this executed side letter, which defendant cites, were It Ends With Us Movie and Blakell Inc. Next point. The CRA contained a provision stating there shall be no retaliation of any kind against artists for raising concerns about the conduct described in this letter or for these requirements. Any changes in attitude, and this is how bad it is, right? Any changes in attitude, sarcasm, marginalization, or other negative behavior, either on set or otherwise, including during publicity and promotional work, as a result of these requests, is retaliatory and unacceptable and will be met with immediate action. Lively, undisputed. Okay, next point. The CRA expressly stated that it reflected additional terms and conditions which shall be deemed incorporated into the ALA. Lively, undisputed. Next point. The first whereas clause of the CRA states that the parties wish to confirm the conditions under which the lender has agreed to cause artists to render acting services on the picture following the break in production of the picture related to the 2023 WGA and SAG-AFTRA labour strikes. Lively, undisputed. Next point. The CRA did not contain any provision embodying a promise that Lively would forego or delay any claim against any party. Lively, undisputed that no such provision appears on the face of the CRA. Next point. At the time the CRA was executed, no long-form agreement had been signed, nor had the terms of any long-form agreement been finalised. Lively's response, undisputed that the ALA had not been signed, but disputed that the terms were not substantially finalised, and disputed to the extent that this assertion suggests that the ALA was not a binding, enforceable agreement. The face of the CRA itself confirms that the parties had reached agreement on at least the material terms. Further, only 20% of the terms remained subject to discussion around the time the CRA was executed, and meanwhile both parties had commenced performance of their obligations under the ALA. And then there's some stuff that's redacted. Okay. Next point. The CRA did not include any admission or acknowledgement of improper conduct or that any of the conduct prohibited by the rider had ever occurred. Lively, disputed. Next point. Doesn't expand on that, just disputed. Wayfarer Studios was not a party to the CRA. Lively. Undisputed that Wayfarer was not listed as a party in the recitals to the CRA, but disputed that Wayfarer was not bound by the CRA. The CRA expressly obligates Wayfarer by name and was signed by Wayfarer's president, Jamie Heath. Okay. In response to the CRA, Wayfarer's Vice President of Business and Legal Affairs, Amin Mezian, indicated that Wayfarer, Sony, and production acknowledged the CRA and Lively's concerns regarding safety, professionalism, and workplace culture, and with narrow caveats, promptly agreed to 16 of the 17 protections outlined in the CRA. Okay. So, I think I did say this, I think, on video too. So Jamie Heath, yes, he's in one capacity, he is the is he the president or the CEO? I thought Tara Hanks was president. Anyway, the fact that he is in a role in one capacity, for Wayfarer, and then has a role in another capacity for It Ends With Us Movie LLC, which is an entirely different company. People can own more than one company. Blake Lively should actually know this better than most people, given all the business franchises, the business entities that she has. Yeah, such as Blake Brown Beauty, Betty Buzz, right? So if Blake Lively, in her capacities, like say for instance, she signed off on this as Blakeo Inc., her loan out company, signed to say that she would provide acting services, right? And she did that for tax credit benefits. So when Blakeo Inc. signed anything, right, to say that, you know, they would form this contract, it was not Blake Lively as an individual, it was not Betty Buzz, and it was not Blake Brown Beauty. So she, and she would argue if Wayfarer tried to say, well, all these companies then technically, because Blake Lively is the face of them, they all breached this contract or they're all responsible for this, right? That is just a ridiculous and absurd situation, right? We could also go with Van Zandt, because I do think that Blake Lively was the kind of the person behind the scenes. I think Ryan Reynolds, yes, he signed up, more recently, as the kind of CEO of the company, but I think Blake Lively was probably the CEO originally, at the time at least, that the sham lawsuit was filed. I don't know that for sure. I think so. But she cannot sit there, right, and apply a rule to Jamie Heath that she is not prepared to apply herself. And it just does not work like that. Because she has, for instance, she has sued Wayfarer, she has sued It Ends With Us Movie, and she has sued Tag and tried to sue Street. But she has also sued the individuals. Because, there is a corporate person and then there is an individual. And they are different things, right? And the fact that someone is a CEO of a business does not mean that where the business is liable, that does not necessarily go hand in hand that that person is personally liable as an individual. So I don't agree that just because he is Wayfarer's, I think he's CEO, but whatever he is, just because he's Wayfarer's, senior person, that automatically translate to, he is doing something on behalf of Wayfarer, when in fact he was doing it on behalf of It Ends With Us Movie, because he has a role in It Ends With Us Movie LLC, the business. I hope I'm making some kind of sense there, but she is trying to basically conflate, this person has senior roles in these two companies, I signed something with that company, but she's trying to make it apply to the other company that person has a role in, and it doesn't work like that. Because otherwise you'd be in the absurd situation where, Betty Booz would have technically, if Wayfarer wanted to throw her argument back at her and say, well, okay, Blake Lively, yes, your loan out company signed on behalf of you. You are the face of the loan out company, but you're also the face of Blake Brown Beauty and Betty Buzz. So therefore, those companies, we they also breached the contract. They didn't sign the contract. And you can't say that Betty Booz or Betty Buzz was not part of this whole thing, because that was, she abused the marketing of this film she used it to cross promote Betty Buzz. So, you can sit there and say, well, okay, Wayfarer, you can, there's at least a connection between Wayfarer as a producing this movie, and it ends with this movie. Yes, there is, but also there is as well on the other side with Blake Lively, because she used the movie to cross promote Betty Buzz and Blake Brown Beauty, her hair care products too. In fairness, so there are connections, and I don't think she wants to really go down that avenue. But legally, it doesn't stick. Okay. Next point. Lively has not provided any evidence that the compensation she received for her work was reduced following her demand for protections. She does not dispute that the compensation she received for work on the film was not reduced following her request for implementation of the return to work protections detailed in the CRA. Next point. Following Lively's insistence on a list of protections and the execution of the CRA, her role in the production and involvement in the film was not constrained or diminished in any way. Instead, Lively's control over the film continued to expand. On December 28, 2023, Baldoni wrote that although he was angry and upset about letting Blake take over a film and rewrite a movie we spent years developing, writing, and funding, I am waving the white flag and submitting. I'm going to give her 98% of what she wants. Her response, disputed. Oh, right, okay. During 2024, Baldoni and Heath diminished Lively and her role in production through post-production and promotion of the film. How? How? For example, it's redacted. I want to see what that says. In post-production, Wayfarer and Baldoni redacted. How on earth can she claim that they diminished her role? Next. On January 4th, 2024, we're getting to the meeting in the penthouse. Lively, Baldoni, Heath, and others met at Lively's apartment at Lively's request, and then redacted. Lively disputed that redacted. The CRA specifically indicated that at artists' election, an all-hands in-person meeting before production resumes, which will include the director, the existing third-party producer, the Sony representative, the newly engaged third-party producer, artist, and artist-designated representatives, to confirm and approve a plan for implementation of the above will be adhered to for the physical and emotional safety of artists, her employees, and all the cast and crew moving forward. Further disputed that redacted. Okay. I bet that's disputing Ryan Reynolds spent 6 hours screaming at Baldoni. Next point. During the meeting, Lively read a longer list of demands of her phone. In addition to the protections discussed above, these demands appeared to refer to several incidents Lively had raised previously, including Baldoni's reference to circumcision in their first meeting, his discreet inquiry about her weight in April 2023, and the events she had discussed in June 2023, such as the birth video she was shown by Heath and Baldoni's references to his prior pornography addiction, as well as insinuations that defendants needed to be told not to discuss personal experiences with sex or make sexual comments to female cast or crew. Lively also demanded that Baldoni not speak to her dead father, mention his own religious beliefs, or have private multi-hours meetings in Lively's trailer with Mr. Baldoni crying. Lively also demanded notice of COVID exposures on set. Okay. Right. Her response. Undisputed that Lively included additional protections on the list kept on her phone, but Lively respectfully refers the court to the cited source, etc., etc. These additional protections were also discussed above. And then the next part is redacted. Okay, next point. Although the attendees were stunned by the nature of the meeting, they made efforts to assuage Lively's anger though neither Heath nor Baldoni admitted any wrongdoing. Disputed. Heath redacted during the January 4th meeting. Also disputed that Lively was angry. Also disputed that attendees were stunned by the nature of the meeting, given that the return to work protections specifically indicated that that at artists' election on all hands in-person meeting before production resumes, which will include the director, the existing third-party producer, the Sony representative, the newly engaged third-party producer, artist and artist-designated representatives, to confirm and approve a plan for implementation of the above will be adhered to for the physical and emotional safety of artists, her employees, and all the cast and crew moving forward. Okay, next point. Sarowitz was not present at the meeting that took place in New York on January 4th. He does not recall exactly when he learned about the meeting. Sarowitz recalls speaking to Baldoni about the meeting at some point in time, but does not know the exact date they spoke. Lively, undisputed. Okay, next. Sarowitz was never aware that anyone ever referred to the meeting as a HR complaints meeting. Undisputed that Sarowitz was not aware of anyone using this specific phrase, but disputed to the extent that the substantially identical substance was conveyed to Sarowitz. I just want to point out the irony, right? In earlier on, I think it was in the last video I did, where or video 2 or 3, where Wayfarer made the point that Lively had not referred to sexual harassment in her email, and her response was like, well, I didn't know I had to use buzzwords, right? But here she's kind of like, they're saying, well, Sarowitz did not know this was a HR complaints meeting, and she's like, well, no, may not have known it was actually, a HR complaints meeting. He may not know about the specific phrase, but it should be, he should have known the substance of it. And it's like, right, okay, you're just moaning for the sake of it now. All right, so the rest of that is redacted. Okay. So next point. Sarowitz is aware that Lively sent a list of demands for her return to work, which were honoured. Lively disputed to the extent that Lively's demand that there shall be no retaliation of any kind against Lively for raising concerns about the conduct described in this letter or for these requirements was not honoured. Next. Sarowitz has no knowledge that anyone at Wayfarer Studios committed any of the acts implied in the list of demands. Disputed. Sarowitz was on a text chain dated January 5th, 2024, in which Baldoni acknowledged that many of the things Miss Lively complained of were based in actual situations, and that Mr. Heath did a beautiful job apologising. Next. Sarowitz understood that Wayfarer Studios acceded to Lively's list of demands under duress and with a caveat saying that the studio did not necessarily agree with the demands. Lively. Undisputed that Sarowitz testified that this was his understanding. Next. Around the time Lively provided her list of demands, representatives from Wayfarer Studios spoke to counsel who advised that there were no events that they felt would require an investigation. Lively disputed. Defendant's assertion is unsupported by any admissible evidence, as Mr. Sarowitz's testimony was based entirely on inadmissible hearsay and not personal knowledge. Okay, so next point, 217 is entirely redacted. Next point, 217 is entirely redacted. Lively's response. Undisputed that Lively revised certain scenes in December 2023. disputed as to the characterization that Lively insisted upon revising numerous scenes in the film, which is not supported by the cited evidence. The cited exhibits reflect that revisions occurred, but do not establish that Lively demanded or insisted upon them. Sorry, my chair is squeaky today. Okay, so next point. In a revision of a redacted, Lively explained that she was trying to redact it. In her revised scene, redacted, later the characters are described as redacted. Lively. Undisputed that the quoted language appears in Wayfarer Exhibit 125 and Exhibit 128, but Lively respectfully refers the court to the cited sources, etc. In another December 2023 revision, Lively directed Baldoni's character to say redacted. Her response disputed because Wayfarer Exhibit 126 does not include the quoted language redacted. Production resumed on January 5th, 2024. Lively undisputed. The second phase of filming took place primarily on a New Jersey set and with a few additional days in California. Lively undisputed. That day, Lively told Slate, redacted. Her response undisputed that the quoted language appears in Wayfarer's exhibit, but she refers the court to the cited source. 1 week into filming on January 14th, 2024, Lively told redacted. Lively undisputed that the quoted language appears, but she refers the court. 224 is redacted entirely, with literally like the name Lively twice is the only unredacted bit. Her response undisputed that the quoted language appears, but she refers the court to the cited source. Next point, filming concluded on February 9th, Lively undisputed. The next point is entirely redacted. Her response undisputed that the quoted language appears in Wayfarer's Exhibit 39, but disputed as to the characterization as extensive control, which is described instead as the director's partner. Lively respectfully refers the court to the cited source. On or about February 22nd, 2024, Lively told Sony that she would not agree to promote the film unless she was permitted to participate in the edit. Okay, now we're getting some tea. She disputes it. The cited evidence does not support the assertion that Lively threatened to not promote the film unless permitted to participate in the edit. Lively told Greenstein at Sony, redacted. During the ensuing weeks, Lively redacted. Her response disputed. The assertion that Lively made extensive edits to the film, trailer, and poster is argumentative and unsupported by the cited evidence. Exhibit 132 reflects a text from Lively to Greenstein discussing the edit, and Exhibit 133 reflects a text from Lively to Swift asking Swift to watch the trailer. Neither exhibit shows that Lively performed or directed extensive edits to any of these materials. Okay, next. Lively told redacted. She also did not hesitate to redact it. And then the rest is redacted. Her response undisputed that the quoted language appears in the exhibits, but Lively respectfully refers the court to the cited source. Next, Lively urged redacted, and then the rest is redacted. Her response undisputed that the quoted language appears, but respectfully refers the court to the cited sources. The next point is entirely redacted. Lively undisputed that the quoted language appears, but she refers the court to the cited source. Lively also demanded changes to the film's credits, and then there's redactions, and removing a credit stating that It Ends With Us was a film by Baldoni altogether. It's disputed that Lively demanded anything. What? Lively made requests and they were granted, under the threat of everything. Oh my God. So she's not denying it. She's saying that she didn't demand it. She's saying she requested. Why would you request it? Why did she need his film by credit removed? Why? Undisputed that Lively proposed Baldoni remove his film by credit, but disputed to the extent that this paragraph suggests that doing so was inappropriate. It was fucking inappropriate. I'm sorry, it was. Or that Baldoni did not waive his credit of his own volition. Are you kidding me? Did we not all see that text message between Jamie Heath and the Sony executives, where, the Sony executives said he's got to remove his film by credit? And Heath was like, well, look, can we talk about this? And another Sony executive was like, no, do as you're told, or we won't get Taylor Swift's song. Oh, God, she is talking out of her bum. Right, next one. It's entirely redacted. Her response undisputed that, and then it's entirely redacted. Lively also insisted that Baldoni's image be removed from marketing materials and the film's poster, which ultimately just featured Lively herself. Then there's a bunch that's redacted. I mean, a lot that's redacted. Lively. Undisputed that the quoted language appears in waiver's exhibit, but Lively respectfully refers to... Right, so she can't dispute it, but she wants the court to go and, look at it in context. As someone very well pointed out, actually, in the comments in one of the other videos in this series, the irony that she's demanding the judge go and look at the exhibits in context when she cherry-picked all those text messages and gave them to the New York Times to, create an illusion of something that wasn't quite true. But now she wants context. Okay, next point. The film's post-production supervisor wrote, redacted. Lively. Undisputed that the quoted language appears in Wayfarer's exhibit, but Lively respectfully refers the court to the cited source, etc. Next point. Lively asserted, redacted. Lively. Undisputed that, redacted, but disputed as to the characterization, redacted, which is argumentative and unsupported by the cited evidence, redacted. Next point. Josh Greenstein, the president of Sony's Motion Picture Group, wrote, redacted. Lively's response, undisputed that the quoted language appears in Wayfarer's exhibit, but Lively respectfully refers the court to the cited source. Next point. On July 7th, 2024, Lively told, redacted. Her response, undisputed that the quoted language appears blah, blah, blah. The film premiered in New York City on August 6, 2024, and it was released to the public on August 9, 2024. That is undisputed. On or about July 17, 2023, during the filming hiatus and before presenting her protections demands, Lively and her husband Ryan Reynolds unfollowed Baldoni on Instagram. Undisputed that Lively and Mr. Reynolds unfollowed Mr. Baldoni's social media accounts in or around July 2023. Next point. After the conclusion of filming and leading up to the premiere, Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, openly attacked and disparaged Baldoni, seeking to tarnish his reputation in Hollywood, including among their famous and powerful friends, as well as with fellow cast members, and in the media, for instance, and there's a lot redacted. Okay. Undisputed that redacted, but disputed that redacted, and then everything else is redacted. Next point. During the relevant period, redacted. Lively, undisputed, redacted. Next. On July 13th, 2024, redacted. Next. Her response. Undisputed that the quoted language appears in the cited source, but Lively refers the court to the cited source. Next. On or about June 20th, 2024, a promotional event for the book was held at Book Bonanza, Hoover's annual romance book convention. Baldoni was not permitted to attend. And then there's a bit that's redacted. She says, undisputed that a promotional event for the film was held at Book Bonanza, that Baldoni did not attend, but otherwise disputed, redacted. Okay. Next. In July, Lively excluded Baldoni from a marketing shoot for the film conducted by her husband's marketing company, Maximum Effort. And that will be that rather cringy junket with Brandon Sklenar, Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds, and Ryan Reynolds' mum. Her response, disputed. The evidence cited does not support defendant's assertion that Baldoni was excluded from a marketing shoot. From a marketing shoot, not from that marketing shoot is a whole different thing. She's changing the wording. To the contrary, the evidence shows that Baldoni's representatives explicitly stated that they were not asking at all for Justin to be flown to New York and in the room with Blake, but rather were just asking for him to be incorporated into whatever content is produced. So optically, it isn't evident that he isn't included. All right, so that quote confirms basically, certainly it's confirming an opinion that he wasn't included, but also in that junket, did anyone see where Justin Baldoni was incorporated? I didn't. Sony assured Baldoni's representatives that their content team was putting together a few pieces for Justin. Well, that was very generous of them. To which Baldoni's PR agent, Abel, responded, wonderful, thank you. Okay, but he was excluded from that, which is what the point was being made, and she's played on the words there. Lively and others at Sony were aware that the media, including social media, was picking up on Lively's efforts to alienate Baldoni from the cast and film while generating adverse publicity about Baldoni, for instance, and as a lot redacted. Lively, undisputed that, redacted, otherwise disputed because the evidence defendants cite does not support their assertions or characterizations that 1. Lively made efforts to alienate Baldoni, 2. There was adverse publicity about Baldoni at the time, 3. Redacted, 3. So there's 2 3s. The redacted. On or about July 22nd, 2024, redacted. And then they quote possibly a text or a statement from Danny Greenberg, who was Justin Baldoni's WME agent, where he said, Lively's been brilliantly choreographing this for a while. Lively, disputed, and then it's all redacted. Okay. Next. Ultimately, Baldoni and the Wayfarer team were not allowed to be on the red carpet during the premiere, except during specified times when Lively was not present. Baldoni and his team were also required to wait in a basement, while Lively conducted her red carpet pictures and then view the film on a separate screen. She's disputing that. The evidence cited does not support the defendant's assertion that Baldoni and the Wayfarer team were not allowed to be on the red carpet unless Lively was not present. Well, that was sure as hell their impression, and they were not on the red carpet. When she was on the red carpet, they were not there. But the messages that were being sent in real time were certainly of the opinion that they were not allowed to be on the red carpet with her. She goes further. It also does not support defendants' assertion that Baldoni was required to wait in a basement or that defendants viewed the film on a separate screen. They clearly did. And we all have the pictures of, oh my God, they're in a fucking basement surrounded by stock for the vending machines. I mean, who gets dressed up to the nines and goes to their film, the film premiere, the biggest film to date, and sits in a room like that voluntarily? That's just, I mean, and the reason this one annoys me, right, is because it is splitting hairs. You know, it's really being kind of just right, yes, I'm annoyed. But also, Justin Baldoni had invited and flown out a woman who was terminally ill, a fan, to join him at that premiere. That poor girl who died a couple of months later had to also join him in the basement. Now, I'm glad that they made the best of it, but she could have had a wonderful experience, met some huge stars had this happened differently. But Blake Lively was too much of a vindictive cow to have allowed that to happen. And now she's sitting here, she got to know about all of this, and she is sitting here now going, no, that didn't happen. Well, no, she's not saying it didn't happen. She's saying, well, the evidence doesn't support that. That, for me, is disputed. I dispute that. Okay, next. God, this woman is making me so angry. The whole point is redacted. Her response, undisputed that redacted. Okay, next. So, for years prior to the events at issue here, Jennifer Abel, a public relations professional, had worked with Wayfarer and Baldoni on PR matters, undisputed. Next, Wayfarer and Baldoni were concerned that any adverse media would harm the reception and success of the film. Her response, undisputed that Wayfarer and Baldoni were concerned that adverse media would harm the reception and success of the film, but the above is misleading because it admits that redacted. Next, even as the negative press intensified, Wayfarer gave Abel and her colleagues explicit instructions to not place any story that was negative about Blake Lively or otherwise. Our main focus was to mitigate the negative press that was breaking organically from the press tour. Her response, a plethora. Get this, remember this, right? When we do the order on the spoliation sanctions, yeah? Because, on the one hand, she's saying there's a plethora of evidence, there's overwhelming evidence, blah, 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 blah. But then in the same breath, she is saying, I've got no evidence, they destroyed it all. What the fuck are you on about? A plethora of evidence instead supports that Wayfarer, Baldoni, Abel, Nathan and Tag strategized and executed on a plan to bury Lively that included getting ahead of the narrative, pushing out key messaging points that were negative about Lively, and placing or amplifying negative stories about Lively in the press and on social media. Next point. On July 24th, 2024, Heath and Jen Abel agreed that redacted in response to the swirling press rumours. Lively disputed. The document dependent site does not contain the quoted language, also disputed for the reasons set forth in plaintiff's response. That's a couple of paragraphs up. Next, on or about July 25th, 2024, Baldoni and Heath first met with Tag, Melissa Nathan's PR firm, to discuss the possibility of retaining a firm for crisis PR. A Tag employee's notes from that meeting state that Wayfarer was not going to fire offensive bullets but wanted to have a strategy. Lively undisputed that Baldoni and Heath first met with Tag on or about July 25th, 2024. Also undisputed that the quoted language appears in the cited source, but Lively respectfully refers the court to the cited source. On July 26, 2024, TAG circulated a proposed scope of work. It included providing support for Baldoni and others with independent strategic counsel, curating statements, background information, and talking points for the press, reflecting Wayfarer's core values, key messaging, and the integral role they played to bring this film to life, developing a scenario planning document, identifying third-party validators, working to mitigate negative stories, correct inaccuracies, and monitoring coverage, as well as providing input on press strategies and media training. Lively undisputed that the quoted language appears in the cited source, but Lively respectfully refers the court to the cited source. On July 30th, 2024, Wayfarer President Tara Hanks wrote to Stephanie Jones, redacted. Lively undisputed that the quoted period appears in the cited source, but disputed that, redacted. Next, Wayfarer hired Tag and Nathan on August 2nd. Lively undisputed. Next, on August 2nd, 2024, TAG circulated a scenario planning document listing a series of possible options for responding to the public relations crisis facing Baldoni and Wayfarer. Nathan has testified that document was not an approved action plan, but only a preliminary document for the purposes of scenario planning, with each suggestion being only a possibility. This is not definitive. Lively undisputed, except that the evidence suggests certain options set forth in the scenario planning document were indeed acted upon, such as, for example, 1. Giving a friendly reporter who is covering the film a simple line hinting that you and Blake had our differences to tee up reporters properly that there were issues with her. And 2. Planting stories about the weaponization of feminism and how people in Blake Lively's circle, like Taylor Swift, have been accused of utilizing these tactics to bully into getting what they want. When discussing the contents of the scenario planning document, Nathan told Abel, when we send over documents, we can't send over the work we will or could do because that could get us into a lot of trouble. Imagine if a document saying all the things that he wants ends up in the wrong hands. The work is not the document. Okay. I am going to stop there and move on to the next part. Isn't that wild, though, that she's like, well, I didn't demand that he remove his film by credit. I requested it, and it wasn't inappropriate to do so. Girl, it was. That's just the wordplay. The wordplay. Right, okay, I will see you for part 5, I think will be.